lesson is going to be about relations and functions. So first, let's define a relation. So a relation is a collection between two sets formed into ordered pairs, where one set contains the input or the domain, can also be your x values, and the other set contains the output or the range, also known as the y values. Now let's underline domain and range here because these are things we need to know. So a relation is a collection between sets, and the domain is the input, the range is the output. Also known as your x values for domain and your y values for your range. So here I have an example of a relation. Let's say I'm trying to assign chairs in a classroom. I want to assign chair 1 to Maria, chair 2 to Will, and chair 3 to Abby. The input would be chair 1. The output is that Maria is in chair 1. The input would be chair 2. The output would be that Will is in chair 2. The input would be chair 3, and the output would be that Abby is in chair 3. So now if we were to write these in ordered pairs, I would have the set, and then I would have an open parentheses, and then I would have chair 1 for my x value, and Maria for my y value. My second one would be chair 2 for my x value, and Will for my y value. And then my last one would be chair 3 for my x value, and Abby for my y value. And this is my relation where I have an input and I have an output. So now let's look at another example here. Let's say I have the set 0, -5, 1, -4, 2, -3, and 3, -2. Let's say I have that set right there, okay? My domain would be all my x values, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I would put a set 0, 1, 2, 3. That's my domain, all the x values. And then my range would be my outputs, or my y values, -5, -4, -3, and -2. Those are my outputs or my range. So here's two examples of relations. This is a relation, this is a relation. The first value is your input, your second value is your output. Same thing here. This is an input of 0 with an output of -5, input of 1 with an output of -4, and so on. And then we list all of our inputs, which is 0, 1, 2, and 3. We list all of our outputs or our range, which is -5, -4, -3, and -2. Okay, so here I have another example of a relation. I have my input and I have my output. I have an input of 4, an output of -2, an input of -5, an output of -2. I have 0, and 0 has two outputs, -2 and 7, and then 9 has an output of 7. So if I state my domain, it's just the set of all my inputs, which is 4, -5, 0, and 9. And then my range is the set of all my outputs, which is just -2 and 7. And those are my outputs. Okay, so now we're going to define a function. A function is a relation in which every input is paired with exactly one output. This means that your x values do not repeat for different y values. So every input is going to have just one output. Every x value is going to have one unique y value. So let's check to see if this first relation is a function. What you want to do is you want to look at your x values and see if any of them repeat for a different y value. So I have 0 and my x value. So let's check the other x values, and it doesn't look like 0 repeats. Next we're going to check 1, and 1 does not look like it repeats. 2 does not repeat. 3 does not repeat. 4 does not repeat. I have a negative 4 over here, but that's a y value. Okay, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking at the x values. And here we have 5, and 5 doesn't repeat either. So all of the x values have unique y values. So this is a function. So now let's look at this second example. I have negative 1 in my x value, and let's check the other x values. That's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 0, that's a 0, that's a negative 2. So all of my x values are different from negative 1. I have a negative 1 as a y value here, but that doesn't matter. I'm looking to see if negative 1 repeats for a different value other than negative 7. So that one's fine. Here's 1, and 1 doesn't seem to repeat. 2 doesn't seem to repeat. 0 repeats right here. So now we have to check closely. Are these the same value or are they different values? If they are the same value, that's okay. It could still be a function. But if they are different values, then it is not a function. So 0 repeats for different values of y. This is negative 8, this is 5, so this is not a function. Okay, I've got 2 examples here, and we're asking which one is a function. So here at A, let's look at our inputs. Here's our inputs, here's our outputs. I have 3 mapped to negative 1. That's 1 value for 3. 1 mapped to 2. That's 1 value for 1. 0 mapped to 2. That's 1 value for 0. Each of my inputs have 1 output. Even though 1 and 0 both have an output of 2, that's okay. 1 has 1 output and 0 has 1 output. So this is a function. So now over here, 2 maps to 2. That's 1 output. That's okay. But negative 1 maps to 3 and negative 2. It has 2 different outputs. So this is not a function. Okay, I want to look at one more problem, and we want to determine, is this a function or not? So the first thing we're going to check is, do my x values repeat? So we're going to check 0 first. And here's 0. That's 1. Oh, there's 0 again. So now I got to check, are my outputs the same or different? My outputs are the same. So this has 1 output and it's negative 5. This has another output and it's also negative 5. So it's the same output. It's still 1 output of negative 5. So now 1 only has negative 2, negative 5 only has 0, and 4 only has negative 1. So every input still has 1 output. Even though this one repeats, it's the same output of negative 5. So this is a function. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's lessons on relations and functions. Tomorrow we're going to look at whether a relation is a function or not based off its graph. So we'll be looking at graphs, and we'll be doing something called a vertical line test to help us figure out whether a relation is a function or not. Have a great day, everyone.